But you can see we got our 4 upright tubes here. We're going to run these through that, and the idea of that's going to fit very snugly on this tube. Pick the truck up like this with the bed out here on the back, so it's got maximum leverage on it back here basically, and nothing broke. Alright guys, welcome back. We're back working on this 55 truck this week, getting it ready to go to Six Smokies for our first drag and drive event, and we're putting in that QA1 triangulated 4-link. This is part 3. If you've missed part 1 and 2, part 1 was disassembly. Part 2 was building the bars and getting everything mocked up. Now we're into part 3 where we're actually kind of locking in some pieces on this triangulated 4-link. So I appreciate you guys for joining this week. Let's jump right into it. We have thought and calculated and guessed and everything else to try and get to this point, but we think we're finally able to kind of ready to start building this C-notch. So what we're gonna do here, you can see we have our piece of 2x4 tubing. We have it set here and set to where our shock mounting tube here, the upper shock mounting tube, is gonna run right into the center of that 2x4 tubing. So we want that to come here, and then we want that to come like this, and then that's gonna come forward, and then this bar is still sort of the question mark. We need to get our C-notch in here so that we can set the height of this where we want it based off of the program that we've been using. So we want this to come down about 1/4 of an inch from where it is right now. And the only way to do that is to get this flange cut and then maybe get this piece of tubing put in here so that we can figure out the best way to handle that. So that's what we're doing. We've got this set up. This is at a 13-degree angle. We're going to figure out the height we want to cut it, and then we can start building forward with it and come up here, and we're going to do a similar angled setup to this right there, and that should set everything where we want it. We took our Trick Arc Captain plasma cutter here and cut out this flange, and now we have this upright bar here and run at the angle that we want it to be running at. So now we have to cut this off a little long so we can figure out what this upright piece is going to be. So the QA1 kit comes with these plates here. They are, in theory, you would weld the tubes for the shock mounting tube and the front trailing arm, upper front trailing arm tube. They would get welded to this, and then this plate would get welded to the frame. But because of the way we're doing this with this C-notch and the box tubing here, what we're going to do is that tube right there, we cut a hole in it with a hole saw. That's exactly the same diameter as the outside of that tube. So that's actually going to fit inside of that, and then we will weld around that hole and eliminate us having to use that footprint. So that's pretty much the only thing that we've changed from the kit so far, I would say. But you can see we got our 4 upright tubes here. They're all 4 a little long. That is the gap that we have to figure out the best way or how we're going to connect it. So somewhere in here maybe, running down to this one, something like that. But that's kind of where we are, and the other thing we have to do is transfer this hole that's on the inside of this tube to the inside of that one. Alright, so what we're going to do, since we can't get a Sharpie in here and we want to try and get that in exactly the same spot, we've got these tubes laid here together, laying flat. I'm going to reach in here with this 90-degree scribe. There we go. And I'm going to go around that hole with this scribe. Alright, let's see what that looks like. There we go. It worked. So now we should be able to get this hole exactly in the same spot as that one there, and that will have everything level. This has been a long time coming. We finally got everything in here how we want it. Everything's at least mocked up. You can see we've got our front bar as close to level as we can get it, that's for sure. That distance from this bar to this cross member, which is square, is exactly the same. So that is running perpendicular, with the chassis. Not really, because the chassis runs inward, but you know what I'm saying. These two bars are running parallel with each other. That's where that's going to live. Now we have to make our front brackets go up here and fit, which they appear like they're going to. They're going to fit and make these bars really run directly with this angle of the bracket here. And the only thing that we have left, you can see we have about an inch of the bar sticking through on both sides. Yeah, Dad's kind of holding that up to show you what it's going to look like. That bar is going to look like that. Now, what we have left is cutting these tops off of these, getting these shortened up. We still got to drill some holes. We're going to cut some holes here in this boxing to get that where we need it to be, so that upper shock mount tube will go through there. And then the other thing that we're going to do is what we realized after the fact was that we could cut this top flange of this frame out and then mount our crossbar here, the connection bar. We can get it set a little lower here, and that'll let us cut these bars off some so that we're not as much up here into the bed of the truck. But it's going to have a pretty healthy C-notch here in it. More than enough, more than what we need, honestly, but that was there so that we could still get that bar specifically in this tubing and get it really rigid and structured. After making some really good gains yesterday, we went ahead and started to continue on getting our uprights for the C-notch how we wanted them, having all the holes cut in them so that we can run our tubing through them. Let me talk you through what we're going to do back here in the back. You can see Dad has taken this piece out and hole sawed a larger diameter hole than what that tube is right there, and we cut some sections out of this 900 OD tubing here. We're going to run these through that, and the idea of that's going to fit very snugly on this tube here for our upper shock mounts. Those will overlap about an inch. They'll stick all the way through this tube. They will get welded here and here. We'll also drill holes through them, rosette weld here and here on this tube, and they will stick out over this, and they'll get a weld around that tube. So all of this C-notch box tubing and the other pieces of tubing are going to just become one big, extremely rigid piece. So Dad is taking that one. All we're going to have to do is to bore the weld out of it, and that will give us enough to be able to feed that tubing inside of this piece right here. So you can see where that weld seam is right there, kinda. You can see that weld seam in there. That pretty much just needs to get knocked down enough for us to run that tube inside of this one. And then we already talked about that yesterday. We're going to do a similar thing here on the front. These are already cut. We're going to take these out, cut another hole on this side with a diameter of the ID of this tube right here, and we'll have a piece that runs through this, gets welded into our big front trailing arm tube there. It'll get welded around the outside, probably the same thing, rosette welds, and then get welded into this tubing, making all these two bars to rigid, solid pieces of the entire chassis itself. That's going to put us into a really good position where we're starting to actually see some light at the end of the tunnel here. This thing is coming together. It's taken a lot of work and a lot of time to get everything figured because of just this, because of the original frame that we're working with, basically, to make sure we get everything how we wanted it. But man, we are so close. So let's get over here and see what Dad's doing on the lathe. So we could get these cut off to the height that we wanted front and rear. we basically took this template that we cut out what feels like ages ago now and centered it up on that hole, and then ran that down to where it would be just above the hole here in this tube. So that's gonna, our C-notch is gonna end up a little higher than what we initially expected, just to kind of get this to where it's all running on the same plane. This will be one big flat plate. We'll weld some plates on these two tubes, and then we'll have another section of tubing here with angles cut on it and welded in here. And Dad's sawing that now. After getting everything else tacked in place, we got our upper bars tacked right there. So now we officially have a 4-link all tacked in place. What we're working on now is our connection pieces here between the uprights. You can hear Dad in the background. We're gonna get those cut out, tacked in as well. Maybe even go ahead and fully weld those up, and then get ready to cut our frame. This will be the first time we've ever cut a frame like this. I know like airbag guys and everything, they've done a lot of this. It doesn't really bother a lot of people, but we've never done it. So this will be the first time for us doing that. So we'll get this all set up. Man, we're getting so close. Alright guys, we went ahead and set the rear end housing, the axle housing out here, and we're going to work on putting some boxing plates in here. We want to box this section of the frame right there back to the C-notch. We've already started making some templates here. We want to get this done, these boxing plates in, and fill these gaps, bridge these gaps where we just way overestimated our cut here. That's definitely on us. We're going to gap those with some piece of angle. You can see that angle laying there. That'll end up being something like that right there. So those will get bridged, that'll get solid up, and then we're going to put these boxing plates in. Once those are in place, we'll be ready to weld everything, and we can just, Dad can go on a marathon weld session. We went ahead and built a template out of some cardboard. I don't know where it ended up, but anyway, we built some templates for those boxings, and we laid them out here, and we have our Art Captain Cut 55 Pro that you guys have seen us use a couple times now. We're going to cut these out, at least get them roughed in on these angles, so that we can then take them in here and make them fit, because this is probably going to be just a little wide for that gap, but we want to be able to go in and grind and cut our way down a little at a time so that we don't, you know, overestimate this too much. See, we've got our first one roughed in here. We're going to do some trimming to get it fit a little better. Those will sit in there and structure up that section of frame a lot. Dad's doing what you've seen him do a lot in the past few episodes. He's getting this rear end housing, all the brackets welded up this morning. He's going around the outside of each one of them, getting them welded up, and then he's going to go in. Then he's going to go inside here and stitch up the insides in a few places. That's based off QA1's recommendations. They want you to solid weld the outside and then just put some stitches in there. They said that would help prevent warping any of these once you put them, once they're on here. So that's what we're doing. That's what he's doing here. Dad went ahead and got the whole axle housing welded up. I took some Scotch-Brite and just scuffed it and then wiped it down with lacquer thinner. And we're going to use this MRO Seymour industrial strength paint. It's maintenance, repair, and operation. It's supposed to be high solids, good coverage, really high coverage stuff. And I'll tell you, I've started shaking this. In the next can I'll show you, when you start to shake this isn't like most like spray paint cans. When you start to shake it, you have to shake it for a good little while before the ball actually starts moving. So that's how like high solid this stuff is. So I'm going to use this to paint up all of our brackets and everything. So I've got it out here, wiped down, got it out in the sun, letting everything dry up good, and I'm going to let it sit out here after I paint it. It's pretty good temperature today, so we're going to use this. I'm hoping it's going to do really good. It's going to turn out good. Let's just see if I can just not mess it up. All right, we are ready to do what we've been wanting to do for a while now. Saw this frame rail out. Since the welder causes our microphone, for whatever reason, just go crazy, I let Dad get ahead of us a little bit, but we've got everything sealed up here on the C-notch. So we got these tops cut and welded in, we got our holes cut and welded up, we got our little filler pieces here welded, and he even got one side of the boxing tacked in place here, so you can see that. That's how that's going to be. That's going to make this, man, that's going to make this thing super rigid. And the other thing that we did, there was a little where these front spring hangers had were mounted, were riveted in. Stuff had got in there behind that, and kind of there was some rust right here. That was just one spot right about there that was in the frame. So we just took this piece of angle on both sides, cut it, and filled this gap. It's going to add a little bit of more rigidity and support to the bottom of the frame here, and just kind of fill that up a little, just to kind of make everything as solid as we can make it. And we did that on that side too. So just a marathon weld session today, getting all this stuff kind of wrapped up, so that and once we get this boxing in, we're ready to, the next thing that we'll do is we'll bring this bed in here, and we're going to strip all the wood out of it, bring the bed in here and set it on here and see how it is. We're going to, because of the boxing, that's where one of the cross seals will rest. What our plan is, the old way you would do it, the bolts would basically come up from through the frame, and there would be nuts here on these cross seals. So you can see these cross seals right there. There would be nuts that rested in here, and the bolts would come up, and that's what would bolt it in. But what we're planning to do, since we're going to get rid of the whole floor anyway and replace it with metal, we're going to put some threaded inserts into the places where these cross seals rest. So here and here, those in there. And what we'll do is we're actually going to have it to where it bolts down through the bed, so that we can bolt all that in through the bed into the frame. So if we never need to pull the bed off, it'll just be a super fast 8 bolts, set the whole bed off. So that's kind of what we're thinking. We're just trying to think ahead and make this thing as easy to work on in the future as if we decide to continue to make changes or whatever we need to do. It'll let us be able to work on this super easily and super fast. So, Dad got everything welded up. The next big thing that we need to figure out is how this bed's going to fit onto the frame. So what I did, I made a paper template of the C-notch and used these cross seal standoffs as my guide, and I marked where that C-notch is basically going to be. We're going to take the wood out of the bed, take all the stainless strips out because all that's going away. And we're going to do that and figure out what we need to do to make this thing fit. And then at that point, it's going to be ordering some sheet metal to build the floor out of. We'll still use these same cross seals and everything. And that's going to be, should make this pretty good. I don't think this is going to be such a big deal. And we're going to build a small platform in here that will run across to take up this whole side. But because these standoffs, these cross seals are so high up here, they take up a lot of our C-notch. So we're not going to have to cut anywhere near as much up into the bed as I initially expected us to have to. So we're really going to not be hacking into the bed too much. We're actually not even going to be hacking anything else that we haven't already hacked out when we put the tubs in. Not my best cut, but
That's what we're on it for.
Alright, there's our notches we cut out of the tubs here. Those are should set pretty close. We probably end up having to cut more out of them. I was a little conservative on them, I hope. Let's set this thing in here, see if it'll sit on there. Man, it turned out looking weird with the wood on it. Because the frame's running so far inboard, and when the wood's in it, everything looks square. So, like, it looks crazy with the wood not there.
It looks like what we've been dealing with for
Yeah, exactly.
10 weeks.
Alright, guys. We're going to do some trimming. That's what it's going to look like inside. And we'll have a platform that goes across this to wrap everything up, get everything settled in. But that is what that's gonna live like. I'm just kind of taking everything in. We got to trim these tubs. That one's got to have some more cut out of it to clear the C-notch. This one also. The back one, we should have done that at the, I had 2 marks there. I need to cut a little bit more out of them, but you can see these are, we built these spacers, if you remember a long time ago when we first did this truck, we built those spacers so that the cab runs level and the bed actually runs level with the cab. These trucks are really bad to have this bed running downhill toward the cab. Probably, I assume, for like drainage and stuff like that. It was what they were thinking when they built the trucks originally. But they were just no good. Don't like that. It made the truck look really crazy bad. So we got that bed leveled up and we used those spacers to do that. So now we just gotta get all this rest of this figured out. Do some more trimming. All right. We've got everything clearanced out now. Everything clears the C-notch here on our tubs. And the bed lines up here on these 2 rear mounting holes. And if we take a 4-foot level, wherever it is, take a 4-foot level onto that bed, you'll see it is incredibly close to level, which is what we're looking for. Same thing here, extremely close. So you can see we have that, we have our, I think it's a 1-inch spacer, or I think it's aluminum spacer and the cross seal.
It's 3/4.
It's a 3/4, okay.
I think it is, yeah.
And then we have our 3/4 piece of wood there, and that's where that's how this is going to have to end up. So now we have to figure out the floor that we're going to build for this, to kind of do all the things that we need to do here. So, but that's how it needs to end up here, with these on the frame, that up there on the frame like that, and now build a floor. Simple. All right, we backed the truck out here this morning. set the bed back off of it, backed it out here so I could kind of scuff up and paint some of this, at least the C-notch itself. I remembered we're still going to have to put our drive shaft loop in, so this will just probably be this back section, at least get the bars and everything coated, cleaned up and coated. I'll probably leave the paint off of our boxing for right now so that we can put that drive shaft loop in there. Dad's moving some stuff around. I'm going to grind some of these corners here just to clean those up. But one good thing, pick the truck up like this with the bed out here on the back, so it's got maximum leverage on it back here basically, and nothing broke. So that's a good thing. That's a big positive there. So at least in this state we're didn't have any breakage, so that's a good thing. Got a couple of coats of our MRO Seymour paint on here. Looks really good. I love that paint. I'm gonna just start using it pretty much all the time, especially this flat black. Just got everything coated up. 2 coats on it, like I said. Should just keep everything from rusting. I left a couple of bare spots on the plating here, because that's where we're going to attach our drive shaft loop for a safety loop there. But it's pretty good. And like I said, out here with this up here on the jack stands, we've kind of got it. We've got some pressure on it. Nothing's acting crazy, so our knot should be pretty secure and safe. So I hope. So anyway, we'll have to bring that thing back in here, and then we can kind of keep going forward on the bed itself. And that's where we're going to leave it for this week. So I know we kind of left it where we were starting to work on the bed, but we actually found a little bit of a oopsie with our rear end, the axle housing itself, and we're going to end up having to straighten that thing. So next week we're going to show you guys how we go about fully disassembling a axle housing and getting it straight for an application like this. We've done it here in the Dana 60 that's in the 55 car. Now we're about to do it for the Ford 9-inch. That'll be next week, so make sure you tune in. Hit subscribe if you enjoyed this. If you want to see that, do that so you don't miss it next week. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all those. If you don't do that, we don't get to work with these cool companies like QA1 and make these really fun videos that we really enjoy doing, and, you know, thrash and work really hard like we do all the time. So make sure to follow us, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.